Very good evening to all our viewers, and welcome to today's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Toivo Njabela, your host. Tonight we are very pleased to have in studio the ambassador of Ukraine to South Africa, Botswana and of course Mozambique. Her name is Liubov Abravitova, and she's in the country on a mission that she will share with us in a moment. Ambassador, thank you very much for making time.
Good day to you.
Yeah, wonderful. It's really a pleasure having you on the set, especially in light of so many things that are going on in your country. If you can share with us why you are in Namibia.
Well, the reason is very simple.
Yeah.
We are opening today an exhibition about Russian aggression in Ukraine, which was dedicated to the anniversary of open invasion of Russia. But also we are opening the bookshelf of Ukrainian books in the famous The Village in Gaborone. So I hope people living and visiting Gaborone, Gaborone Windhoek, will be able to come and have a look at what kind of culture, heritage Ukraine has today, but also what kind of literature, not only in Ukrainian, but translated already in different languages, including English, we have today. So to all those who live in Windhoek, all those who are visiting, very welcome. Welcome to see us in the evening for this opening.
Wonderful. I know that people will see for themselves what is in store for them as far as Ukrainian culture and literature is concerned. But from what you can share with us, what is it that is so unique and special about Ukrainian culture and literature?
First of all, Ukraine is one of the ancient countries of the world. It started its official existence in 1988, when the Kiev was baptized. So only later in 15th century Ukrainians built Moscow, and so-called Moscovia started to exist. This is how different the cultures are, and the understanding of Ukraine as a nation with its own culture, language, is not really the knowledge of many people. And that's why such exhibitions that we are opening the platform for us to discuss this issue and to show what really Ukraine is trying to preserve today. Why Ukrainians are fighting so furiously for their sovereignty, territorial integrity, why they're fighting for themselves, not only for that, for this heritage that our grandmothers and grandfathers were protecting from different enemies during the history.
Yeah. So it's the resilient nation historically. You've always so essentially you are continuing a legacy of resistance that your forefathers have left behind. Is it correct to say that?
It is correct. It's also, the history have a tendency to repeat itself in different parts of the world. And when we are looking at the deliberation movements, decolonization movements in Africa, we clearly see why Ukrainians are fighting today against Russian imperialism, because this is the pure neocolonialism that this country is trying to not only establish or re-establish, to remain.
Yeah, oh, wonderful. It's a terrible situation that your country finds itself in. What can you tell us about the situation at home? These attacks, this war in your country. Some say completely unprovoked. How is the situation like at home right now?
I can easily share with you not only the information but the feeling, because I just came back from Ukraine, from Kiev.
Yeah.
But let me start by saying it's not the war that started 1 year ago. Russian invasion started with annexation of sovereign part of Ukraine, which is Crimea, and further war in the east of Ukraine in Donbass. It started in 2014. And what happened 1 year ago is just the full-scale invasion of Russia, which they called at that time three-day operation. So Russia miscalculated. It's not three-day operation. Russia is not the second largest army in the world. Ukrainians, being not only resistant but united and firmly believing in their independence and right to sovereignty, proved that Russia is not strong, because the strength will be on the side of the right in this history, as we see even in Africa.
Yeah.
We have been experiencing the heaviest attack since the end of Second World War. We still have, even after we deliberated half of the cities and villages that Russians were able to take, we deliberated half of it, still under Russian control, we have 1,688 villages and towns, mostly in the eastern part of Ukraine. But missile attacks, attacks with drones, and shellings are happening every day and every night. And they're happening not somewhere in the battlefield where we are trying to deliberate our areas. They're happening in the cities, in Kiev, in Mykolaiv, in Kherson, where the civilians are attacked. Last yesterday, Zaporizhia was attacked when dozens of civilians were killed. There is a video in YouTube and in social media. Just watch it. It's the house, you're coming back from work, you're sitting with your children, having a dinner maybe, and then their life is ended with the Russian missile that is just bombing in your house. But what is interesting, how Ukrainians really are resilient. And we do understand that as soon as we run away from their country, Russians will take over. We understand that as soon as we are not working in our country, for our country, the economy will go down. So people are coming back. Those who fled 1 year ago are coming back to support the country. It is a very strange feeling when you see your country operating as normal, and then suddenly the missile alarm goes on, and everyone have to hide in the shelters, and everything is closing. And we are waiting when our anti-missile systems will reach their goals, and basically they are hitting 90% or destroying 90% of the missiles that Russia is able still to send. And then when missile alarm goes off, Ukrainians are continuing to operate as normal. This is one side of the story. Obviously, on the battlefields, our people, men and women, are protecting our land. We pray every day for them. As of today, the official number of Russian soldiers and officers killed in Ukraine is 150,000. And this is the reality of today. We are still standing, we are still existing, Nevertheless, Russia is trying to hit our infrastructure, to destroy our civilian objects, our heritage. Why we're talking about the importance of showing our heritage and culture everywhere abroad? Because this is what Russia is doing deliberately. They're making genocide against Ukrainian population, trying to eliminate us. They're taking our children from the occupied areas and taking them to Russian territory. They are stealing. They're kidnapping our children. This is the pure genocide, I must tell you. And that is why the recent decision of International Court of Justice on the warrant to Putin appeared. And I think this is a very unprecedented moment in the history of the contemporary world.
Yeah, wonderful. Ambassador, we'll go on a quick break and then we return.
Please, put on your safety belt, sir. It's very important for your life.
The seatbelt doesn't make me drive comfortably. Yes, that's better. Please wear your seatbelt. I did not.
The My.NA Cars Show provides viewers with the best in-class cars content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest cars-related news, products, and services. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na. My.NA Cars, more than just a ride.
The conversation with Ambassador Abravitova continues. Ambassador, just I don't want to labor the point, but I think you made very important observations there on the situation regarding Russia invasion of your country. The Russians have always defended this invasion by saying that Ukraine wants to join forces with countries and formations that are against their interest, and that NATO, for example, if Ukraine was to officially join NATO, it brings NATO at the doorsteps of Russia, and that there are agreements that Ukraine is no longer willing to commit to. From some years ago, I listened to Sergei what is the man's name? The Russian
Lavrov.
Yeah, Lavrov, yes. He was speaking in India recently, and he was making those kind of observations to say, yeah, we've been talking, and the Ukrainians wouldn't listen to us, and we were left with no choice but to intervene militarily. How do you respond to that?
Well, after the statement of Lavrov in India, or was it Indonesia? I don't remember.
One of those
already.
countries, yeah.
I think that he proved to the world that all the regime of Russia is living in parallel reality. To attack Ukraine, to surround it with 1,100 troops, to attack it, to cause all those atrocities in the country, and then to say that someone attacked Russia, I think it's really something wrong there.
Yeah.
But let's take it from the very serious point, because NATO issue was one of the justifications why, why Russia attacked Ukraine. And it was never on the urgent table at the moment when Russia did invade it. But what probably our viewers are not aware of is that Ukraine has aspiration to become NATO and European Union member in its constitution. It's our constitutional right.
Yeah.
So basically what Russia would want is to change our constitution, which is interference into our internal Affairs, which is against not only international law, it's against the United Nations Charter. It's, sorry for this example, I don't know, any bordering country would come to Namibia and say, we don't like your friendship with certain country, let's change it. Or let's change your constitution. We don't like what is written there. So this is what we were facing at that moment. Moreover, you've seen that, well, there was certain drama, but Russia didn't anticipate it and now even tripled the borders with NATO. It's almost there. 2 extra countries decided for themselves that they want to join, and those 2 were never certain about this aspiration.
Yeah.
So he did show to the world that we have to go for the security guarantees. We are not talking about alliances here. We are asking what kind of security guarantees each country can have. If we abandon one of the largest nuclear arsenals in the history of the world, under guarantees, by the way, also Russian Federation, and now we are suffering from the invasion of this country. So the NATO issue is very disputable, but yet, let me remind to all of us that NATO is not participating or helping Ukraine to fight against this evil. Yes, the members, the separate countries on bilateral level do, and we appreciate their support. But NATO as organization is a protective alliance. So it's just nonsense that it could ever cause a threat to Russia or to any country.
Yeah. Thank you, Ambassador. Let's talk about, I mean, to many of us here in Namibia, when we talk about Ukraine, I think it's either we remember the country either through your many decorated sports stars, the Klitschko brothers who fought, who dominated the heavyweight division in boxing, and footballers like
Andriy Shevchenko.
Shevchenko, yes, wonderful, yes. He played for Chelsea and also in Italy. So that is one thing that brings Ukraine to our minds. But I think most importantly is the cordial relationship that your country has with ours, which has made thousands of Namibians to go study in your country in the areas of medicine in particular. What can you tell us about the friendship between the 2 countries first before we go into the fate of students who had to leave last year?
There is an interesting point here. So we have a very long-standing relations between Namibia and Ukraine. Ukraine was one of the 15 states that were forming USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. Among them was Georgia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Russia, Ukraine. Everywhere, different African countries would have connections or send their students to study, as you told rightly. But it happened so that Ukraine was one of the most visited. Ukraine was the country that was training ANC leaders on its territory, or SWAPO leaders. And you know, when USSR collapsed, interesting thing happened. Russia took over all the legacy of USSR, legacy of our friendship with Namibia as well. I'm not speaking about taking the place in United Nations Security Council. I'm not speaking about taking over all the diplomatic representations in Africa, but also the narrative of how USSR was important for African continent in its deliberation movements.
Mm-hmm.
And while doing so, Ukraine had to establish its statehood. We had to re-establish our constitution, which is one of the oldest constitutions in Europe, by the way. We had to establish our diplomatic relations as a new country with Namibia particularly. It was a process.
Yeah.
And we lost this time while Russia started to make its propaganda. So what we have today is this 30 years of Russian propaganda that is covering all the efforts of Ukraine to be noticeable and to remind about itself. With Namibia, it's very interesting that we, though, continue for all these 30 years to have lots of Namibian students studying there. We have 400 universities through all Ukraine that are offering different types of studies in different sciences for foreign students. And before invasion started, we had 9,000 only African students in Ukraine, and 90 students from Namibia. So when invasion started, basically Russians didn't only started to bomb us as civilian population. They are not only started to attack Ukrainians, they started to attack your citizens there.
Yeah.
And they were fully aware that many African students were in Ukraine. I want you clearly to think about this.
Wonderful. So I know that things like re-establishing those study ties will probably be the last on the list of Ukraine. Now you have a more bigger crisis. But what do you know as a representative of your country, this side of the continent, about, a Namibian student watching this show now who fled from your country? What kind of message would you leave them with?
It is very important that we're talking about this, and I'm grateful that you are bringing this particular issue to the audience. First of all, we hope and we know and we believe that we will overcome this evil and that we will win this war and we will re-establish not our territorial integrity, but every single sector that was damaged. And after all, it is obvious already, and all the world is speaking, that Ukraine will become the hub of opportunities. You are the students who are studying in Ukraine. You know how this country is beautiful. You know how we were treating you in Ukraine, how we wanted you to build your beautiful country, Namibia, with our help. I really ask you to believe in Ukraine, continue to do so. It will be a hub of opportunities, not only for us, but also for you, because you left your part of your heart there, but Ukraine also wants you back. I know it's very difficult, and let me speak about very uncomfortable issue here. I know some of you cannot get your documents from Ukraine today because Russia is bombing our universities, and maybe not all the universities went digital, and we don't have the way how to, on this stage, to confirm your curriculum. We sometimes, in certain circumstances, can provide you with online studies, and I know some of you are continuing to do it online. Please don't lose your faith in Ukraine, and I'm sure you will come back and we all together will build very strong relations between Ukraine and Namibia.
Wonderful, wonderful. That was a very beautiful and very powerful message to Namibian students. I'm sure a lot of them are currently watching. But the very last question, Ambassador, and we have run out of time, but I think it's very, very important. Recently, I mean, the irony of you being based in South Africa, and recently there were some military drills that included, in South Africa, that included Russia. How did that make you, what was that about?
Well, there is a position of South Africa on that, which says that this is not the first time the drills were happening, and they're happening in the format of BRICS cooperation. Our official position is, first of all, that it's very pity that this exercise is coincided with the anniversary of Russian invasion. Meantime, the official position is that by having this type of exercising, we are giving to Putin and his regime the feeling of impunity, that he continues. And it somehow stimulates him to continue. Why we are talking about importance of unity of the world towards democratic values that all of us were fighting for centuries. The values of the world, why it's so important today everyone together to speak about that. Because you cannot be neutral or non-aligned to the United Nations Charter.
Yeah.
We all have to be adhering to it. And if the history knows the wrongs or misuse or certain actors in the world who are not behaving right, two wrongs doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
The scope of today's invasion and repercussions of it, we can feel in Namibia. Your prices on fuel, your prices on food, it's there.
Yeah.
So we cannot allow it to happen. So we don't have to allow Putin to continue this, and we have to accuse his regime of what he is doing.
Absolutely. Ambassador, it's such a pleasure having
Thank
you on
you
the
so
set.
much.
You spoke very well, and you gave us new insights, also things that we did not know, much clearer to us now. So thank you very much for your time, and we wish your country the best of luck in its resilience, and that hopefully the world will be a peaceful place. And when Ukraine is peaceful, we will be peaceful here too. Our students will go back. Our prices will probably get better, and all that. So we really wish you the best in your fight.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was the Ukrainian ambassador to South Africa, also including Botswana and Mozambique, speaking to us about the situation at home. And yeah, thank you for watching.